Welcome to the show. My name is Adam. Thank you for tuning in. Today we are doing another rapid review of the entire Legend of Zelda series, starting with the very first NES game that started all the way back on the Nintendo Entertainment System. So, what is there to say about the very first Legend of Zelda? The biggest Legend of Zelda that impacted me first was the one on the Super Nintendo. That one was just absolutely mind-blowing. I loved that game so much, and it's still today even one of my favorite games right now. Just completely blew me away. Amazing gameplay, amazing music, story, parallel worlds, so many dungeons. There's like 10 dungeons in that game. So the first Zelda, because the Super Nintendo took everything that was great about this game and then like turned it up times 10 on the Super Nintendo version. So this one didn't have a huge impact on me at first. I mean, I have gone back and beaten it. It was kind of like that, it was in that very beginning stages of, like, it didn't impact me as much as the Super Nintendo one did, but I mean, this game is still really good. I really enjoy this one as well. So going back to it, I still think it's a very, very good game. And there's definitely just absolutely, for the game for the time was just incredible. Yeah, like so much to do, massive world to explore, all these different cool items to use. They really did an amazing, phenomenal job with this game. So I am going to give it I don't know, it's hard because I think a lot of people started with this Zelda first, and it has such a huge it means a lot to them in particular, but to me, this one, I'd probably give an 8 out of 10 for this one. But also just because I didn't really start on this one first, it was more the Super Nintendo one. So let's move on to the next one, which was Zelda 2 on the NES. And actually, it's interesting. This one had more of an impact on me than that one did. And I think that's because I picked this up at my local game store. And I just played a lot of this one. I really enjoyed the 2D side-scrolling aspect of it. Again, there was another massive world to explore. There was a lot of cool items. The fighting or dungeons were really unique. A lot of cool puzzles to solve in this one. I had a neat like RPG mechanic to it, so you could like level up your character as you killed enemies, and then you had experience points that would go up, and then you could upgrade your life or your magic or your attack strength. So that was really cool about this one that I really liked. And I think I had to actually use Game Genie to beat this game because it was so hard near the end there. So I had to use Game Genie, I think, to help me out because it just gets so difficult near the end of the game. But yeah, this one I'd probably give this one an 8 out of 10 as well. It's not like mind-blowing or anything, but it's still a really good game and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, 8 out of 10 for Legend of Zelda 2. And the next game was the Legend of Zelda for the Super Nintendo. This is the one that really sucked me in. This was the first Legend of Zelda game that just absolutely blew my mind. The dungeons were so unique and different from each other. They each had like their own little item that you had to utilize to beat the boss or to get through the dungeon. It was just so amazing for its time. Huge world map again. A lot of cool, kooky characters. The music, again, very, 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 very great music. Lots of power-ups to find. So yeah, this is definitely a 10 out of 10. Let's not beat around the bush here. 10 out of 10 for Legend of Zelda Super Nintendo. So let's move on to Link's Awakening was the next one. I don't have the physical cartridge for that one, but I remember borrowing Link's Awakening from a buddy of mine. He had it on the Game Boy, and I used to rent a Game Boy from Blockbuster, and then I would be able to play Game Boy games. And my buddy had Link's Awakening DX, which I believe was the color version. And that game was also extremely well done. It had a lot of dungeons, a lot of great puzzles. What they were able to accomplish on the Game Boy with that game is is magic. I can't believe they were able to fit so much into such a tiny little game. And it's just absolutely incredible what they were able to do with that game. Some things that did bother me about that one was there's a lot of cryptic puzzles in there that I got stuck a lot in that game. It was kind of hard to tell like where I was supposed to go or what I was supposed to do. So I'd have to look at a walkthrough and kind of figure out certain things. But I mean, that was probably the only downfall for that one for me. Just that I had to look up a walkthrough for certain things. Another really great game. I would give that one a 9 out of 10. I definitely think Link's Awakening was better than the first Zelda and the second Zelda. Now let's move on to Aaran of Time. Now this game, this game, this has a really huge spot in my heart. When I first played Aaran of Time, I had just, like, we were borrowing, my brother and I were borrowing an N64 from a buddy, and he let us borrow Legend of Zelda Aaran of Time. And for me, it was difficult to get into the 3D. Like, I couldn't quite grasp it yet. I was still transitioning from, like, you know, PlayStation and Super Nintendo, and then to go to Aaran of Time after that it was just jarring a little bit, you know, like I just wasn't used to it yet. But over the years, like I got it again for Christmas with an N64, and it just became one of my all-time favorite games ever. The music, I still hum like the Lost Woods theme from time to time. I'll just be doing my work or walking outside, and I'll just be like do 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 do. It's just so catchy. There's so many catchy tunes in that game. There's like the Epona theme, or Lun Lun Ranch theme, and then there's like Zelda's Lullaby, and then there's the Song of Storm. Like, there's so many catchy tunes in that game. The Gerudo Valley, the overworld theme. It's just, I remember playing it like till like 2 or 3 in the morning on high school nights, and my dad would like come walk by my door to make sure I wasn't still playing, and I'd have to like jump into bed, pretend I was sleeping, and then when he walked away, then I'd come back out and keep playing. I'd play that just 2 to 3 in the morning. I just remember just the most relaxed and peaceful, and just being in such a beautiful Zen mode whenever I played Aaran of Time. One of the best stories, music, power-ups, towns, characters. It's just everything about that game is just incredible. And I can still go back to it, and it's still just as great as it was when I first played it. So that's definitely a 10 out of 10 game for me. And then let's move on to Majora's Mask. Now, the Majora's Mask had it had a lot to live up to coming out after Aaran of Time. They used the same engine. There's minor upgrades that you had to get the expansion pack for the N64. And I think it did do its job. It lived up to the hype. It was creepy having that big giant moon like constantly looming down on you as you're like walking through the world. And the time system was really interesting. Just how everything was kind of coordinated throughout the towns and the overworld. Everything kind of had its like piece that it was following throughout the time. And collecting all the masks and all the dungeons and the different power-ups you get with the masks. I loved being like the Goron, and you could spin around on the overmap and just spin all over the place. And then the Zora like boomerang arm attack that you'd get, and you could swim in the water. I remember like 2 or 3 in the morning, I'd be Zora and just going through the water at the docks there. It's just so much fun. Was it as good as Aaran of Time? I don't know. I wouldn't say it was as good as, I mean, Aaran of Time is a little bit better, I think, than Majora's Mask, but it's still very close. I'd still give Majora's Mask a 10 out of 10 as well. Obviously, Aaran of Time, you know, it beats it a little bit, but they're both 10 out of 10 games for sure. I wouldn't give Majora's Mask a 9. I'd give it a 10 out of 10. It's another great game. And then let's move on to Oracle of Seasons and Ages. That came out on the Game Boy Color. Now, I didn't play these games all the way through. I played about halfway through each one. And from what I remember, they were really good games as well. From what I remember, one game is more focused on puzzles, while the other is more focused on the action side of things. Seasons, I believe, like the weather system would change, and then that would change the puzzles. And then Ages, I can't remember exactly how Ages worked, but from what I remember, they were really good games, and I really enjoyed them. They're very similar to Link's Awakening, like graphics wise. So I would give those games, I'm just going to give them 8 out of 10 for each of them, just because. But again, should I really be reviewing them if I haven't played all the way through? Maybe not. But we'll give it 8 out of 10 for each of those. And then the next one was Four Swords. Now, I believe that was the GBA one. So on Game Boy Advance, they came out with Link to the Past on a Game Boy Advance cart, and then you could play multiplayer Four Swords. So each one of your friends had to have this game, and then the link cable in between the Game Boy Advances. And I remember it was myself, Sandy, and another friend of mine, Jim, and we would play 3-player Four Swords. And that was really, really, really fun. I really enjoyed that. You'd go to like different parts on the world map. There'd be like a fire zone, a tree zone, and forest zone, and then water zone, and then like one other one. Maybe it was like a mountain zone or something like that. And I just remember like playing through the puzzles together was really cool, and cooperating. And then sometimes we'd like just start fighting each other randomly just to like get the most gems, because you could like hit each other, take the gems, and then at the end of the level you would like be on some sort of a pedestal, and whoever had the most gems would be at the top. So that was kind of funny to fight each other for that kind of stuff. So Four Swords, maybe I'd give it 8. I mean, it wasn't like a full-fledged game or anything. I'd give it maybe an 8 out of 10. But it was fun. I really enjoyed it. And then the Wind Waker came out, which was on the GameCube. And I remember I was a little bit, not angry, but like disappointed, I guess, because I wanted the next Legend of Zelda to be very mature and high detailed graphics and all that. And then they came out with the cartoony graphics, which really disappointed me at the time. But playing through the game, I remember that I didn't really like sailing on the ship very much. It was very time consuming to sail from island to island, and that kind of bugged me. I just didn't like being the little kid with the cartoony graphics. But when I replayed it a few years later, I was wrong. The graphics were so good for their time. Like, they're so unique. And even to this day, they look amazing compared to other games around that era. You could still pop that game in now and it looks awesome. So those graphics have aged so well. So Wind Waker really blew me away. Like when I replayed it again a few years later, it really blew me away. So I would give that game a 9 out of 10 for sure. And I actually ended up liking the sailing much more the second time around. So maybe it was just a little bit of me when I was younger, teenager. I wanted to have a more higher detailed graphics at the time, but I'm really happy that they stuck with the Wind Waker style graphics, because it was very unique. And the music, again, on Wind Waker, phenomenal music. Four Swords Adventures, now that was on GameCube as well. You needed a Game Boy Advance with the link cable, and I remember playing 4-player with my buddies on that. And that was more like a full-fledged game. There was a bunch of dungeons, there was a bunch of areas, world maps to explore. Again, it was similar, like you could fight each other and steal each other's gems and stuff like that. Very similar to the Game Boy Advance version. And yeah, it was fun. I'd probably give that one an 8 out of 10. I did like the aspect of the cooperation behind it, and just solving dungeons together was really cool. And the puzzles were really unique too, like how you'd solve puzzles together. Like you'd have your different power-ups, like one person would have a bow, maybe another person would have a bomb, and then another person would have, maybe the jump, the feather. So it was things like that were really, really well done. And then the Minish Cap came out. That was on Game Boy Advance. It had similar graphics to the Four Swords. That one, you had like this talking hat bird that would like give you help and hints and directions and where to go. And that one you would shrink into a little tiny character called the Pakori or something. From what I remember, I did like that one too. I don't think it really like blew me away or anything, but it was interesting. It had some cool puzzles and items, and I don't really remember the story that much. I think there was like a sorcerer at the end. What was his name? Viti or something. It was good. I'd probably give it a 8 out of 10. Yeah, probably 8 out of 10. And then the next one was Twilight Princess. Now this game I really, really liked. This one reminded me more of Aaran of Time and like Majora's Mask kind of darkness to it. I just remember, like, I didn't really care for the waggle controls on the Wii. I played it on the Wii, not the GameCube. I just remember that I really liked the graphics on that one. I liked the story a lot. I liked the ability to turn into the wolf and solving puzzles and things like that as the wolf and traversing the world map. I liked Midna a lot. Midna was kind of like your little helpful side character. She had so much personality. She was really funny and witty, and she was just a great character to come with you on your journey. And from what I remember that game, there's a couple areas that just blew me away. One of them was at the dungeon where you have the top spinner and you're fighting the boss in the center in this like quicksand kind of area, and you're bouncing back and forth on the top and fighting the creature in the center. That dungeon fight was so much. I just remember having so much fun on that dungeon fight, and then that boss fight. And then another area that really captivated me was when you're at the top of the mountain and you're sliding down and going to the mansion in the mountains, to where the abominable snow people were. That was really fun too. Like, so you slide down the mountain, you go into the mansion, and then the dungeon's like part of the mansion in the mountains. And I remember really enjoying that too. It's very calming, very relaxed. It was just, I don't know, there was some sort of a atmosphere to it that I really enjoyed. That I really remembered enjoying a lot. And then also there was a dragon fight where you're fighting the dragon and you're like you're falling down on top of the dragon and you're trying to stab him with your sword with the motion controls. That I also remember that being so cool. So Twilight Princess had a lot of really neat stuff going for it. Give that one probably a 9 out of. I don't think I'd say it was better than Aaran or Majora's, but 9 out of 10 for Twilight Princess. And then we jumped to Phantom Hourglass, which had the touch controls on the DS. I vaguely remember playing. I did play through Phantom Hourglass all the way through. I just remember I did not like the touch controls, and I also didn't like how you had to keep going back to the dungeon, the main dungeon with your hourglass, and you try and go a bit deeper each time to get further into it. And I just remember not liking that aspect of it. And I really did not like the stylus controls. It just wasn't for me. That one I give maybe I'd give that one probably a 6 out of 10. It just wasn't doing anything for me. And then we have Spirit Tracks. Same thing. It was the touch controls. I remember like changing the tracks in the train, and then I remember playing it and being like, and then story was just very cliche, Legend of Zelda, mumbo jumbo, you know? It was just the same old thing, like, we're waiting for a hero, we need to collect these pieces of whatever, and we need to da-da-da-da-da. It was just, I just remember it being very cliche. It felt very lazy to me. Maybe I need to go back and play it again. But Spirit Tracks I don't know, it didn't do anything for me. I'd probably give that one like a 5 out of 10. But I should go back and replay it again. Maybe it's better than what I remember it being. And then we had Skyward Sword, which I didn't like it. I didn't like Skyward Sword. I think there was a few reasons why that was. I didn't really like the motion controls in that. I mean, there was a couple spots that were kind of cool where they'd make you chop in certain directions for enemies. I remember just the world map and the way you traversed it, and like where you're on the bird and you're flying with the motion controls. I didn't like that. I didn't like how you chose certain areas to jump down into. I didn't like how there wasn't just a giant world map to kind of walk through. They didn't really have anything like that. It was like the main island, the main town, and then you'd kind of just pick where you wanted to jump off the bird and fall down. And I just remember not enjoying that. So Skyward Sword, there's one other thing I didn't like about it. There's a part where I think there was a big tree and you're underwater and you're swimming, and you had to swim like, holding the controller really weird. And I remember just absolutely loathing what I was doing during that time in the game. It just felt awful. And I really did not enjoy certain aspects of that game. So Skyward Sword, I'd probably give it like a 5 out of 10. However, there was one part of the game I really enjoyed, and it was the dungeon where you're kind of in these ruins, and there's a part where you can hit a gem, and it expands like a bubble, and inside the bubble is the past, and on the outside of the bubble was the future. And so like you'd solve these puzzles pushing this crystal around, and then anything enveloped in the bubble would be in the past, while everything outside of the bubble was the future. That was really cool. That was probably the highlight of the game for me, was that particular dungeon. And then we're gonna jump to A Link Between Worlds. This game, it was perfect game. They did everything right with A Link Between Worlds. It was like a throwback to the Super Nintendo Link to the Past, but they just, they changed a few things here and there, and the graphics were really cool with the 3D on the 3DS. I really enjoyed that. The puzzles, the world map, the collecting the little octopus things. That game was perfect. It was a 10 out of 10 for sure. I remember just grinning the whole time I was playing that game, and I just loved it. It was so much fun. They did everything right with that game. It was just the perfect top-down view Legend of Zelda, and I really liked it. And then there was Triforce Heroes, which was on 3DS as well. That one I unfortunately did not play. I heard very vague, like people were kind of like meh. It didn't feel like, I don't think it was like a full-fledged Zelda game. It was more like supposed to be playing with other friends online. So I have to try that one. So I can't really give that one a rating, unfortunately, but yeah, we'll have to skip that one. And I remember that one, you had like different costumes to choose from and different power-ups that way. So, I mean, maybe it's good. I have to go back and check it out and see. And then we come to Breath of the Wild. I played this on the Wii U, and from what I remember, it was, I did enjoy it. There was a few things, I loved the open world. I loved the graphics. There was a few things I did not like, which was, I didn't like how the weapons kept breaking constantly, which threw me off. I also didn't like the dungeons. I hated the dungeons. Like, they were just those big mechanical wooden creatures, and then you'd go inside them and just kind of look for these switches that you had to hit on different parts of the animal. And I just remember hating those dungeons. Like, they felt so boring. There was like nothing to them. There was just like, hey, try to get over here, or try to get here, try to get up there, and hit the switch. And just, I don't know, it just sucked. And the bosses sucked too. They were so like boring. There's nothing to them. All the bosses felt the same. They all looked the same. And yeah, it didn't do anything for me. So Breath of the Wild, and I did like the Wii U controller, like how you could like use it as a kind of a helpful Sheikah slate, or you can put like little pins on the map and stuff like that. So I did like that aspect. That was really cool. But Breath of the Wild, I don't know, I'd give it maybe a 7 out of 10. Just, it didn't really do much for me. But then we had Tears of the Kingdom, which was amazing. I loved it. It was so good. I loved exploring on top of the islands and like going up and down into the caverns, and like the dungeons felt way more interesting, and the bosses felt way more unique, and the music, I just remember the music in the water dungeon up top, and just being blown away by that. And then when you're in the bird village or whatever, and you had to get to the top of to the pirate ship or something in the sky, you had to like jump on these big trampoline things, and you're going up higher and higher, and that was so much fun. Tears of the Kingdom, they just knocked it out of the park with that one. I loved like the different aspects where you could build things and solve the little dungeons in the shrines, and I loved Tears of the Kingdom. Such a cool, that's a 10 out of 10 game for me, for sure. They nailed it with that one. I got that same feeling from Aaran of Time and Majora's Mask from when I was like walking on top of the islands and stuff. That same feeling just brought me back to that time when I was like 2 or 3 in the morning playing Zelda, and it brought me back. Tears of the Kingdom. They did such a good job. And the next game that's coming out is Echoes of Wisdom. So that will be the next game that I will be talking about. So I'm really excited for that one. You get to play as Zelda. It looks very unique and different. You have like a wand, and you like summon creatures and furniture and stuff like that. So that one I'm really excited for. But let me know in the comments what you think. What's your favorite Legend of Zelda? I'd love to hear your opinion. Do you disagree with anything I say here? Like with Skyward Sword, maybe one of your favorites? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button, and we will see you in the next video. Take care.